Welcome to another episode of the Loadout Music Podcast, featuring in-depth interviews with a wide range of music personalities, from rock and roll Hall of Famers to Grammy winners and today's rising stars. Recorded from the Old Rock House in St. Louis, Missouri, here's your host, Aaron Perlut.
Welcome back to Season 4 of the Loadout Music Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Perlut, and I am extremely excited to kick off the new season with Robert Jon Burrison of Roots Rockers, Robert Jon and The Wreck. The band has a great new record out called One of a Kind, and we are honored to have Robert Jon on the show. Robert Jon, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you guys, you follow in a really interesting lineage in that, you know, a lot of people think of your music as being very kind of Southern rock in orientation, although you bring together so many different styles between, blues and rock and country, even a little funk here and there. But you guys are a California band, and I'm really interested in, when you got started, because you guys got started back in, I guess it was 12 years ago in 2011. And what I was amazed at was the speed at which you came together, and then like 6 months later, you had your first record done, Firestarter. How do you do that? Was it something that you were working on and needed to find the right players to help you complete it? How did that happen when you guys came together?
Yeah, we were all kind of playing together before we called it Robert Jon and the Wreck, because it was basically called the Robert Jon Band. And everyone was kind of, sacrificing their lives as you would as whatever you're sacrificing at 21 or however old we were. And we were all writing together and playing together, and it just seemed more like a band than someone's backing band. And I wanted to have that camaraderie a little bit more, so we decided to move into Robert Jon and the Wreck, and and start wherever we are today from that point. And it worked out. And I think we had planned on recording the record maybe before the band name got announced. And we had been starting to work on some songs, and then so that's why it came so fresh and so quick, because we had all been playing together, and it wasn't like all of a sudden these 5 new guys are playing together and then 6 months later, so it's pretty organic.
So it's you and Andrew on drums, Steve on keyboards, Henry lead guitar, and then Warren on bass. Has that same group been together since the beginning, or is that the lineup as it's comprised today?
That is the lineup as it is today. Steve is no longer with us. We have a new keyboard player named Jake Abernathy. He just came in just a couple months ago, and it's been great so far. And but yeah, we've gone through lineup changes through the years. People decide
it's a hard thing.
We're growing up as we're doing this, so we're learning what takes priority in each other's lives, and how much touring costs and takes tolls on you, and even musical passions change, because everyone's, we were all in our early 20s, and I think between early 20s and late 20s is the most formidable years of trying to figure out what you really want to do. We've gone through quite a few lineup changes. Andrew Espantman, the drummer, has been with me since the beginning, and even before the inception of the Wreck. So we've been playing music together for probably, I don't know what it would be. It has to be almost 15 years, which it's been great. So and the lineup we have right now, Henry James on lead guitar and Warren Murrel on the bass have been with us now, I think the longest standing guitar and bass player of the Wreck, for the past 5 years, which has been great. And and Jake just came on board on the keys, so it's going to be an exciting year. Can't wait.
I'm always fascinated with bands that take the name of the frontman of the band, like yours, and how that kind of comes to fruition. If it's just kind of like a natural thing, sometimes you've got a record company that says, no, you're like, you're Tom Petty, you need to be Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, not just the Heartbreakers. How did that happen with you guys? Have you been Robert Jon The Wreck from the get-go? And and was it weird, kind of like, these guys are all doing it with me, or how does that happen?
I mean, so early on, we had already been playing under my name, under Robert
Yeah.
Jon. I had already been playing under Robert Jon. So kind of in all of our heads in the beginning, we were like, well, we need to keep Robert Jon because you've already created a name for yourself, which in retrospect, we had not created much of anything, in the long term of things,
Sure.
that's just coming from a little band in Orange County that went on the road a couple times. It wasn't that big of a thing, but that's why we kept it in there. And I think going farther, it is very like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, but like, Mike Campbell plays guitar in Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Sure.
And Montesh, the keyboard player, has been with Tom ever since too. I mean, it's more of a band than you think, and you kind of just have to get to know the band and love the band. And now, we've kind of created that so people, Warren's name's being called out from the audience sometimes, and Henry too. So it's just takes the time to kind of create everyone. And yes, it's under my name, but that's just kind of what we started with. So we're not turning back now.
Yeah. No, I've actually, I think I mentioned to you before, I play music in a band, and I've often thought about the difficulties of even like doing a name change for a band. Is kind of it's difficult because you're building a brand.
Yeah.
And you do hope that brand is building some type of, notoriety. And then you think, would I ever change this? Then I got to go back from to the very beginning. And it's a pain in the ass. I mean, building the recognition of the brand, because you can make the music. It's like having someone see the name on the marquee and be like, oh, I love those guys, I want to go catch them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even there was a point in time, and I don't know what it is now. Things might be easier, but there was definitely a point in time where like Facebook pages you couldn't change the name of.
Yeah.
And I remember like having friends bands like go through this thing where they have to start a new page, but they already had 2,000 followers, and at the time it was like, whoa, we have 2,000 people already. Like, how are we going to lose that? So I mean, social media plays a huge part in everyone's lives these days. So it's even thinking about that aspect where you already have however many people, and if you change something, then do they notice, or do they just keep on flowing? But I think brand recognition is incredibly important to any business, any band, anything really.
So I want to talk a little bit about for a 13-year period, you have put out, including one live record, you've put out 10 records. I don't think people, at least that don't play music, understand how much goes in singularly just to one record. You must be a pretty prolific songwriter just in terms of like churning them out. But then, I mean, there's the lyrical piece of it, and then there's the composition piece, which I don't know about you, but I find the composition piece much harder than lyrical writing. But it just takes time, and I know that in 2023 you guys are changing a little strategy to a degree. In that you're going to be having a lot of different singles and more EPs coming out. But how do you do that? I mean, how do you go 13 years and 10 records? I mean, the amount of work that goes into that is remarkable.
Yeah. I mean, I look back and don't even realize it sometimes. We just, we know that the product on the table, at least early on, I mean, merch is a huge thing for an up and coming band. And we started touring and especially in Europe, and we always wanted something on the table, something fresh, because if, everyone comes to the show and they already have the record, then no one's has anything to get. So in the early stages, that was really the push to be creating. And sometimes it was, we could all sit around when we're home, or we could force ourselves to get in the room and start writing for the next record. So it's definitely takes some willpower, and luckily we have 5 guys that all write, and so it's not just one person that's writing. We all write together, and we all come up with our own ideas that we share with the group. So it's 5 heads together that are creating this. I think if there was only one sole writer, then I don't think we'd come out with that many records that that much. But yeah, it's just we're always looking to the future and always trying to be the best and that we can. And when it comes to the band, we're touring and we're writing and we're recording, and that's everything in the pipeline.
That's interesting in that all the band members are contributing songs. Just I happen to be watching the Creedence the CCR documentary. It's on Netflix right now, and it talked about one of the biggest points of friction between John Fogerty and the rest of the band, including his brother, was that John wanted to write all the songs, and the other guys, he didn't really want the other guys to contribute. And then finally, when they did on their last record, the record was a total shit show. His brother had left by then. But usually, I'm presuming at least that you contribute the predominance of the song, but is that not the case, or is that not the case? Rather, is it?
I mean,
every mix.
Yeah, it's a mix. I mean, every song's different. Every song comes from a different place.
Yeah.
There's a lot of songs that we write in the room, like without planning anything. We just start jamming, and someone plays something cool, and we keep playing that, and then I'll sing something which I think is cool. And if it happens to all work out, then there we go. It's really cohesive. It's really us all working together. There's different songs placed here and there that come from another place, or back catalog stuff that maybe I've been sitting on or Henry's been sitting on. And that stuff seems to just find its place, that, just kind of flows in at the perfect time when we're looking for something like that. And yeah, it's just, it's a brotherhood. I mean, we're a family, and we're all working together and sacrificing together. And that's the only way it really works, in my opinion, is, I mean, if one person has everything on their shoulders, then eventually it's going to crack, it's going to break down. So we try to hold each other up and take the load on what we need.
How do you, with that kind of like group dynamic and writing style like that, do you find it difficult, or does it even matter, to have a consistency within one record? Some records really have a thread going through them, or a specific narrative. Some don't at all, but at least with a band, you have a consistent sound. And I've been through every one of your records, and it sounds like within each one, there's a consistency. How does that happen? Is it just, like you said, is it the brotherhood? Is it that you guys?
Yeah. I mean, I think we do take it, like, it almost happens naturally. I want to say, like, even like subconsciously, it's, if we're writing and we write for, like, heavy rocking bangers, if you want to call them, I think it comes naturally to be like, okay, well, we still need that ballad. Where's that ballad going to come from? And it's like we've been doing it for so long that it kind of come naturally to write the heavy fun stuff, because you're just like, I want to play this live and it's going to be great. And then you sit back a little bit and you're like, but we need that slow paced song to sit in the middle of the record, because we're still making records. This year's a little different. We've been coming out with a lot of singles, and that's awesome. But we'll be back in the studio in April for the actual full length record. And you kind of think of it a little differently, because you want it to be an experience to listen from front to back, which is uncommon these days. It's not really the forte, if you will, but we still enjoy doing it. And it's just a different mindset sometimes when you're, writing songs to be recorded one at a time and released as singles than it is we're going into the studio. So we need to check all these boxes of how the album is going to flow. And, but we're still open-minded enough to let other things in. I mean, if a funk song comes in, it's fun because it's different. And we're still open to kind of creating new material that doesn't have to fit in the box that I think that people are putting us in more and more. And that just comes from being musicians that love to play music, no matter what style or genre it is. And I think that it'll definitely all sound like us, because we are the five guys in the room playing the music. So whatever we do is us. I don't think we try too hard to sing differently or play the drums in a different style, or play the guitar in a different style. It's just however the song comes in, we try to play to the song and make that song the best version that we can.
Yeah, to your point, I don't think anybody's gonna be doing like concept albums anytime soon. It's hard. It's a hard culture to do a concept album, and
Yeah.
I can go back to like all the way back to Elton John's Tumbleweed Connection, which I think is his best album. But I mean, it's kind of this like old South concept album where he's exploring the American, Western ideal, or any of the like the Styx records that Dennis DeYoung dreamed up. Those were all concept albums, or even like Green Day. Their biggest record was a concept album. But it'd be really hard with the way that people listen to music today to do something like that.
Yeah, I think it would be. I think it'd be awesome if anyone did it and people took the time to listen to it.
Yeah.
it'd be interesting if that album that Green Day did came out like today.
Would it still be as big?
Would it still be as monumental as it was when it did come out? But that's stuff you'll never know, and it's see what happens in the future.
Progress being what it is. So it's interesting that you guys are from Southern California. That last season we had Bill Payne from Little Feat on the show, and cool. I love Little Feat as much as really anyone. And I think they're one of the most underappreciated bands in music history. But they were a Southern California band, and they had this interesting, even now they still play great shows.
Yeah. We're going to go play with them on the cruise next week.
They're amazing. But when I think stylistically, you guys remind me a lot, and you hate to compare one band to another, but at least in terms of where you seem to come from, you seem to come from a similar place to Little Feat, because Little Feat there's a lot going on there. It's not just they're not just coming from Americana music or country music or what have you. I mean, and a lot of people also thought they were from like Atlanta.
Oh yeah.
But
I think I did until I found out.
Yeah. No, I mean, I did for a very long time. I remember Bill and I talking about that on the show. But you guys do seem like you have a similar sensibility in that you're bringing a lot of passion for different styles of music.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest question I probably get is, we thought you were from Atlanta or Georgia or Jacksonville, and you're not. And then I say, you're right. We're from Southern California, and we're playing music that we love. And it's great because nowadays we can get every music from anywhere at our fingertips. And I remember growing up, I was just listening to classic rock and listening to the Black Crowes and Lynyrd Skynyrd and all this stuff, and now we're getting related to these artists, and there's a reason. It's because we listened to it growing up. And I think the slide guitar comes in and people don't know where to put you, so it kind of just goes straight to Southern rock in our early days, which is great. I think when people can, not in a bad way, but when people can like put you in the genre that they can relate to, then it helps them almost enjoy it better. If you listen to something, you're like, what is this? This isn't rock and roll. This isn't funk. I don't know what this is. It's kind of hard to attach yourself to it. And so I think some people just need that attachment. And if Southern rock from Georgia, they make sense to them, I'm all for it. And then when they find out we're from California, then they can readjust themselves.
Is that a hard thing, in that radio might not have a place for you? Like, there's so many artists that end up on Serious Outlaw Country that don't have a place on, country music that I want to listen to today. It cannot be found on traditional country radio. You have to go to Willie's Roadhouse or to Outlaw Country. Is that a little frustrating in that, like, it used to be such a mark of achievement for a band that you're driving in the car and all of a sudden something pops on, and for a band like yours, that's really hard today, unless it's maybe like some type of public station that plays kind of a mix of funk or what have you, or an Americana show on a public station, or on some of the serious shows. And I know we live in this age of streaming, but still, is that difficult to be like, man, I'd love to just hear us played?
I mean, it's been difficult.
Yeah.
We've had some success with radio in the recent months. Like KLOS is a bigger station down in LA, and they've been great to us lately. They're playing us all the time, and so I think it's just I was growing up thinking that I was going to be played on K-Rock, just the locals only show. That's all I ever wanted. Not even realizing that obviously our music would not be played on K-Rock. It's just like what you hope for. So I mean, I think we're getting airplay, in the UK and small parts of the US, and I think just that is an accomplishment that we're stoked about. And hopefully that rolls into more. And I feel like people will find what they enjoy listening to somehow or the other. It's how to get your music in front of their faces, or in their ears. And I mean, it's a totally different world, I think, now than it might have been even 10 years ago when it comes to radio play. I think there's a lot of people at work behind the big stations and everything. So I'm just stoked to get a little bit here and there.
Well, I mean, it seems like you're starting to get more than just a little bit. I mean, it seems like you're starting to build that critical mass. I mean, you're partnering now with Joe Bonamassa's Journeyman Records. And let's talk a little bit about your new record, One of a Kind, because you have some pretty prolific producers that joined you here, in that Don Was, who I think a lot of people know from, his days producing Rolling Stones music.
Yeah.
And Dave Cobb, who's kind of the biggest thing going today in music production among, maybe a handful of producers. I mean, that does not suck in any way. What was it like? I mean, what has this period been like for you? One, working with Joe's record label, and then also just having producers like this that want to work with you guys.
Yeah, it's been crazy. It's just been a wild year. Like last year into this year, and it's been great. Working with Journeyman has just opened up a lot more doors, because we have a team. It's not just the band sitting at home trying to figure this out. We have a team that we're working with, and getting the opportunity to work with Don and with Dave. I mean, it was which is this EP that's coming out, One of a Kind, is 2 songs that we do with Don and 2 songs that we do with Dave. And we worked with Don first out in LA, and it was very comfortable. He made it comfortable. It wasn't, in our minds, probably for the first 10 minutes, we're like, this is where we are. We're here with Don. But after that, it was just comfortable and easy, and the suggestions and the way that he was working the band, I think his biggest thing was the vibe and getting out of us who we are. And it was awesome. I can't wait to do it again. And then working with Dave and out in Nashville, I mean, he was really into the song structure. We sat in the corner of RCA Studios with acoustic guitars going over the song first, and let's put a break here, let's bring this part down, and then it was like, let's do it, like immediately. After we just talked about it, we didn't rehearse it, we didn't make sure that made sense. We literally just talked about it and then went straight and started tracking. So like it doesn't leave you a lot of room to think too much, which is something that is easy to do as a musician, as an artist. You can sit back and think way too much, and then you lose that magic. And I think that Dave did really well with that. He just, let's do it like this, and then now we're tracking it. Boom. And they were both in the room, in the tracking room with us. They weren't behind the glass, behind the board. Don was sitting on the couch at Henson Studios, right between all of us, just tapping away. And Dave was right in the middle of everything and on the shaker, like he was our metronome. And it was awesome. It was a really cool experience to do that, especially with those legends, with those people that have created musical history that we listen to every day. It was an honor, and I still sometimes don't believe it.
You were saying that now you have a team. It's probably nice not to be booking yourself anymore, isn't it? I mean, that is it just mirrors that just the absolute shit of what you have to do in music.
Yeah, and I did it for years and years. I mean, when we first started, I would go to the coffee shop and I would just sit there for hours and call places that weren't responding to my emails. And then you try to go on the road. So you're looking at, oh man, where places in Omaha have live music, and you're like, well, that's a cool venue. It holds 300 people. We've never played in Omaha. We're a little band, but let's book that show, because that makes sense. But yeah, booking is definitely a tedious thing. And and seeing how things work now. I mean, without representation, some people don't even get back to you. So I remember back in the day, we made up a booking agent that it was us, but I think his name was like Rick Bender or something. And then we created this agency that wasn't real. It was like Action Talent Group or something like that. And we made the email for it. And it was all fake, but we were trying that out and it didn't really work, probably because it was fake. So people looked up like this talent group that has no website or no artist roster or anything. But yeah, we've tried all the different ways of trying to book us back in the day with DIY stuff. And, somehow we were able to play and go on these little tours and make it work. But yeah, I mean, that's a huge weight off your back when booking gets taken over by someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, it's the most miserable thing ever.
And I mean, it's getting the rejection over and over again, or doesn't really do well for the actual person making the music and performing.
Yeah, the self-esteem.
Yeah.
Wow, these people really don't like me.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about this. You've done the kind of the traditional albums over the years, and now you're kind of pivoting into this process of EPs and singles. Talk a little bit about that, how you just this process of releasing music is changing and what it aims to ultimately accomplish for the band.
Yeah, I mean, we've always, went out on the road and did what we could, and then came home, wrote the record, recorded the record, went out on the road, pushing the record. Then we came home, wrote a record, so with what we're doing now is we, hey, in 2 months, we're going to have this session with Don. And so we need 2 songs for it. So that aspect of like only making sure we have 2 great songs is a pressure reliever at some point, if you have the time to do that, because you're focused on these 2 tracks and that's it. You're not focused on 10 or 12 at a time and writing 22 songs and picking the best ones. You're just focusing on 2. So it's really easy to kind of weed out the stuff at first. And so when it comes from writing and recording, it does seem easier, until, they say, okay, well, now 4 weeks from now, we have another session and you guys are on tour for 3 of those weeks. Then you kind of go, wait, okay. And then try to figure it out. But I think under pressure, people work differently and minds work differently. And sometimes it's a good thing, if not always a good thing, to have some sort of pressure on you to get the job done, or else you could sit there and work on a song for way too long, and then the song becomes not fun, and you don't even want to record it anymore. But yeah, it's the release schedule. I mean, it's releasing singles kind of every 6 weeks or so, making sure there's new content, because how these and there's people that are working on this.
It's algorithms, man.
Yeah,
it's
much more intently. But if you come out with a song and you attach and these people react to it, I'm not even using the right terminology because I really don't get it. But then when you release another piece of new content 6 weeks later, the algorithms work in your favor because it'll push it to those people and then broaden it. and then that bubble just keeps growing as long as there's new content being fueled into the algorithm pipeline.
Yeah.
So
Spotify and
yeah.
YouTube and all. I mean, honestly, Spotify and YouTube are driving a lot of it. It's just
Oh,
trying
yeah.
to game the algorithms of
Mhm.
both those, can get on different song lists on Spotify. And it's,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. It takes like data science today to get
Yeah.
good music heard when, you know.
Yeah. So, there's we're trying that out and seeing how it works, and learning how it works as we're doing it. And I mean, I think there's always a space in music and in the industry to try this stuff out and see how it works. And so far it's been working great for us. And as long as they don't change all the algorithms up, or
Oh, they will.
yeah, I mean, eventually, and then you have to figure that one out. And so it's an ongoing game, it's an
Right on.
ongoing, the train can be going straight for as however long as it will, but then eventually it's going to twist a little bit, and if you're not ready for it, then it's gonna get derailed, and it's gonna take a long time to be put back on there. So what I mean with the team, it's just nice to have all those different assets being looked after. So the band, us, we can really do our best to focus on writing and recording and playing, instead of having our heads in 1,800 different facets of trying to make it as a band in this world that we live in.
Yeah. Right on. Robert Jon Burrison of Robert Jon The Wreck. Thank you so much. This has been awesome. Did we
Thanks,
miss
man.
anything? I know you got the new record's dropped.
Yeah.
You've got more singles going to be coming out this year.
We have
Going
a
on
live
news
record
cruise.
coming out in April, that we recorded in Brussels, that we're really excited about. So that'll be coming out in April, along
Awesome.
with like a DVD, and it's going to be great.
Very cool. Well, Robert Jon, thank you so much for being on Loadout. It's been a real honor and privilege, and a lot of fun just to have you on our first episode of season 4. And
Awesome.
best of luck to you moving forward in the band. I hope to see great things from you.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.